Have you ever hugged a woman and felt her pull away just a little? Not dramatically, just slightly. A subtle stiffness. A half second where her body didn't melt into yours the way you hoped. And you smiled through it, played it cool. But inside, something sank because you felt it. That invisible wall. And you didn't know why it was there or how to take it down. I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening in those moments. And I'll warn you now. The final trigger I share today is incredibly powerful. It can change everything fast. Almost no one uses it correctly, but once you understand it, you'll never approach a woman the same way again. I'm your host, and this is Teal Swan Advice, where we uncover the real psychology that creates desire, not surface-level tips, not manipulation, the deep patterns that actually move women emotionally. So let's go back to that hug. You approached her warmly, maybe too warmly. You were happy to see her. You opened your arms wide, and she stepped in. But something in her body language shifted. She was present but not fully there. You could feel the difference between a woman who wants to be held and a woman who is tolerating being held. And that gap, that emotional distance, it didn't start with the hug. It started long before you ever touched her. Here's the truth most men never hear. This was never your fault. Nobody taught you this. You were raised to be kind, to be open, to show affection as proof of your feelings. And that's not wrong. But it was applied at the wrong time in the wrong sequence. And attraction doesn't care about your intentions. It only responds to specific signals that most men were never shown. So stop blaming yourself. You're not broken. You're just untaught. And that's exactly why you're here. Now, before we get into the actual triggers, you need to understand something fundamental about how female attraction works. Because if you skip this part, the rest won't fully land. A woman's attraction is not primarily visual the way male attraction often is. It's emotional. It's intuitive. It runs on deep pattern recognition that's been wired into her nervous system through hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary psychology. Her subconscious is constantly scanning, not for the best-looking man, for the most grounded one, the most present one, the one who feels safe but also exciting, stable but unpredictable in just the right ways. She's running a program she can't fully explain, and most men are failing that program not because they're bad men, but because they're sending the wrong signals at the wrong time. Once you understand how to work with that program instead of against it, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop performing, and women stop pulling away. Let's get into it. The first trigger is masculine presence. And I'm not talking about how you look. I'm talking about your energy when you walk into a room, the way you hold your body. Whether your eyes move like you're searching for approval, or whether you're simply at ease with where you are, grounded energy is the foundation. When a woman feels a man who is fully in his body, not anxious, not performing, not trying to impress her, her nervous system registers something ancient: safety, strength. This is a man who can hold his ground. That's attractive at a biological level before a single word is spoken. Here's what it looks like in practice. You're at a social event. Instead of scanning the room for who's looking at you or moving quickly toward the woman you like, you slow down. You take up space. You breathe. You're genuinely interested in the environment around you. When you finally speak to her, you're not rushing. You're not over-explaining yourself. You're simply there. Presence is the first thing she feels. Make it count. The second trigger is emotional challenge. This is where most good guys accidentally kill attraction. They agree too fast. They're too available. They're too eager to validate everything she says. Emotional challenge doesn't mean being rude or playing games. It means having your own perspective. It means not collapsing into her frame the moment she pushes back on something. It means a little playful tension, polarity, the kind that makes her feel like she actually has to earn your approval, not just receive it automatically. Try this. She says something you mildly disagree with. Instead of nodding along, you say with a slight smile, "I'm not sure I buy that." That's it. No lecture, no argument, just a gentle friction. She suddenly has to engage more. She has to think. She becomes slightly more invested in the conversation. Make her work a little. That's where interest grows. The third trigger is selective attention. In a world where most men are overly available, scarcity of attention is incredibly powerful. Women are drawn to men who have a full life, not because they're playing hard to get, but because those men are genuinely occupied with their own purpose. If every time she looks over, you're watching her, that's not flattering, that's pressure. It signals that she is the center of your world, and a man whose world revolves entirely around a woman he barely knows has no world at all. That's not attractive, that's unsettling. A man with purpose, hobbies, friendships, and goals has a quiet confidence that radiates. He gives her attention generously when he's with her, but she knows it isn't infinite. She knows it's earned. That makes it worth something. Be someone so that your attention means something. If what you're hearing is making sense, hit subscribe right now and join the Teal Swan Advice community. Seriously, this helps more men learn what they were never taught, and what's coming next gets even deeper. The fourth trigger is intentional listening. And this one is underestimated almost universally. Most men listen to respond. They're half present, waiting for their turn to speak, thinking about what they'll say next. Women feel this. They feel it instantly, and it creates a kind of emotional loneliness in the conversation that they can't always name, but they always feel. Intentional listening is different. It means you actually absorb what she says. You remember the details. A week later, you bring up something she mentioned once casually. You ask how that thing with her sister went. You remember she hates cilantro. You recall that she mentioned being nervous about a work presentation last Tuesday. That kind of recall is not creepy, it's rare, and it signals something profound to her subconscious. This man actually sees me, not just what I look like, me. Being emotionally seen is one of the deepest human needs. Most women rarely experience it from a man they're attracted to. You become different the moment she realizes you were actually listening. Details are the love language no one talks about. The fifth trigger is calibrated vulnerability. This one has a razor-thin line, and most men fall off it on one side or the other. Either they share nothing. They're closed off, emotionally unavailable, a fortress. That creates distance. Or they overshare. They unload their pain, their insecurities, their past wounds. Too early, too intensely. That creates a different kind of distance. It feels heavy, needful. Calibrated vulnerability is the middle path. It's sharing something real about yourself, something that actually cost you something to admit, but doing it with a kind of inner stability. You're not confessing, you're not breaking down. You're simply allowing her to see a part of you that isn't polished, and you're okay with her seeing it. This might sound like, I used to really struggle with knowing my own value. I spent years trying to prove myself to people who weren't worth it. I learned a lot from that. That's real. From that's grounded. That's vulnerability with the spine. Don't perform strength. Don't perform weakness. Just be honest and stay steady. The sixth trigger is gradual physical touch, and this brings us back to the hug from the opening. Touch is one of the most powerful communicators of intent, but timing and calibration matter enormously. A hug that comes too fast, too warm, too tight before trust has been built registers not as affection, but as need. Her nervous system picks it up immediately and she pulls back slightly. Not because she dislikes you, but because the signal was premature. The science here is straightforward. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, is released through touch, but it requires a foundation of safety and gradual escalation to actually work in your favor. Touch her too soon with too much intensity, and instead of oxytocin, you get cortisol. Her defenses activate. Start light. A hand on her shoulder during a funny moment. A brief touch on her arm when you want to make a point. A hand extended to guide her through a crowd. Each contact is light, confident, purposeful, and then you pull back. You don't linger, you let the moment breathe. Over time, if she's comfortable, she starts to move toward you. She leans in slightly, she snorts, initiates small contact. That's the signal. That's when warmth, real warmth, lands correctly. Touch builds connection, but only when it's earned. And now, the seventh trigger, the one I warned you about at the start, the one almost no one uses correctly. Controlled unpredictability. Here's the dopamine science in plain language. The human brain is wired to seek patterns. We're prediction machines. When something follows a predictable pattern, our brain gets comfortable. And comfortable is not magnetic. But when a pattern is occasionally disrupted, when a reward becomes unpredictable, the brain releases dopamine. Anticipation spikes, attention sharpens, we become invested. This is why a man who always texts back in 30 seconds, always agrees, always shows up with the same energy, always behaves exactly as expected, slowly becomes invisible. Not because he's done anything wrong, but because he's become a pattern, predictable, already solved. Controlled unpredictability doesn't mean being flaky. It doesn't mean being cold or inconsistent in a way that creates anxiety. It means occasionally surprising her, sometimes responding fast, sometimes taking your time, being warmer than she expected one evening, being more in your head, a little quieter, another. Planning something unexpected when she was expecting routine, sharing an opinion she didn't anticipate from you. The key word is controlled. You're not being chaotic, you're being dynamic. You're a man with depth. A man who keeps revealing new layers. She keeps having to recalibrate her understanding of you, and that process, that ongoing recalibration, is what keeps attraction alive beyond the first week, the first month, the first year. Mystery is not silence. Mystery is dimension. Now, let's bring this together. Because here's what changes when you absorb these 7 triggers. not as tricks, but as a genuine shift in who you are. You stop trying to prove your value. You start radiating it. You stop chasing her attention. You start deserving it. You stop performing affection. You start earning intimacy. And here's the thing about women, about people in general. They're drawn to those who have done the inner work. Not the man who's learned lines, the man who's become something. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be intentional. There's a massive difference. Perfection is an act you can never sustain. Intention is a direction you can walk in every single day. These aren't manipulation tools. They're not ways to trick someone into feeling something false. They're ways to stop accidentally hiding who you actually are. Most men aren't unattractive. They're just burying their most attractive qualities under anxiety, eagerness, and misaligned timing. Masculine presence, emotional challenge, selective attention, intentional listening, calibrated vulnerability, gradual physical touch, controlled unpredictability, 7 signals, 7 ways to stop being misread. When you walk into a room now, you know what grounded presence feels like and why it matters. When you're in a conversation, you know why gentle friction keeps things alive. When you reach out to touch her, you understand the sequencing that makes touch feel safe instead of pressured. When you share something real about yourself, you know how to do it without collapsing. And when you give her a moment of warm unpredictability, you know exactly what's happening in her brain. That's not a trick. That's understanding. That's strategy applied with respect. She deserves a man who actually knows how to be present with her, not just physically, but fully. And you, just by being here, just by taking this seriously, you've already started becoming that man. You don't need perfection. You need strategy. And now you have it. If you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming the man women genuinely desire, subscribe to Teal Swan Advice right now. Turn on notifications because the next one will shift your reality again.